a civil discussion of the issues important to the borough. Given the tone of some recent gatherings, it may be worthwhile to note that, unlike Borough Hall, this is private property. If you violate the rules, we will ask you to leave. Paul Tarantino is videotaping this session. You will be able to see it on YouTube. He requests that we all keep the background chatter down because it interferes with his audio. So we'd appreciate your doing that. Now, a Garwood resident, I don't know who it was, suggested on at the email address we made available for questions and suggestions here, a Garwood resident suggested that we begin tonight's proceedings with a brief description of a council member's rights and responsibilities. Not a bad idea. So I'm going to try to give you a layman's summary of what council members can do and can't do. The council is the legislative body for the municipality. It can pass ordinances and resolutions. It controls municipal finances. It can create offices and positions. Its role is to legislate and set policy. Individual council members have no authority to act except as a group. A council member, in other words, may not attempt to influence the activities of any borough official or employee. And finally, the council, I think this is largely a misconception, the council does not control the Board of Education. It's a separate entity. So that's what's at stake tonight. Here's how we'll proceed. We'll have 3-minute opening statements. I'll call on the candidates in alphabetical order. John Nolan, the enforcer here, is our timekeeper. He will warn each candidate when 1 minute is left in the opening statement. After the opening statements, I will ask questions submitted by the public or questions devised by our committee here, the committee that organized this session. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. And again, John will provide a 1-minute warning. We will alter the order. We will start in alphabetical order. Ms. Kukaro will give the first opening statement. For the first question, Ms. Carney will have the first chance to respond. For the second question, Mr. Carney. For the third question, Mr. Sarno, and so on, till we run out of breath.
I'm still married.
Finally, each candidate will have 3 minutes for a closing statement. And again, with a 1-minute warning. So to begin, Eileen Kukaro is a Republican candidate. She's a resident of Garwood been a resident of Garwood for nearly 50 years, a real estate agent for 22 years, and she's listed, sold, or otherwise dealt with nearly 160 homes in Garwood. She's a former member of the Borough Planning Board. She attended Union County College, majoring in urban studies and creative writing. She's an avid photographer and has one adult son, also a Garwood resident. Ms. Kukaro.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank The Point for hosting this debate tonight. It was very kind of you, as well as Bill Neerstead and Carol Carney for attending. But most of all, I'd like to thank the residents that have taken time out of their busy schedule to come here and see the issues concerning most of Garwood's residents. Somewhere along the way, elected and appointed officials have lost sight of what it means to be guardians of the public trust. Tonight we'll hear facts and details that all too often are forgotten after the election is over. No one person on this panel has the power or expertise to address all the concerns we have as a community. In my opinion, what is paramount in this election is character, integrity, and the ability to listen to our residents long after the last vote has been cast. In 1903, Garwood's founding fathers, the residents, envisioned a town an independent town separate from our neighbors of Westfield and Cranford. How ironic is it that we have now come full circle and history is repeating itself. I am here tonight to get your support in reclaiming what was once our town. The founding residents did not envision a bucket of bureaucrats thinking they know more than all of us in this room tonight. Much to the dismay of those that think they know my views, I am not here tonight to stop progress, but to manage the excess that our small borough cannot sustain or absorb. I stand before you as a realtor for 22 years and a resident for almost 50. I cannot tell you how many people have said to me, "What happened to the Garwood you sold to me? That was the town that I wanted to live in." My purpose in running for council is to bring the elected officials back to the same playing field as the taxpayers that have elected them. There seems to be a handful deciding what Garwood should be based on their personal views. It is about progress, not excess.
1 minute.
It is about including the people that are footing the bill for all decisions made behind closed doors. It is time to open those doors so the taxpayers can see what is going on in the back room. I decided to run to be an advocate of the people in this room tonight and the ones whose voice has been stifled. For all the seniors that have been taxed out of their home, to the taxpayers that were harassed trying to put a fence on their property, and another taxpayer that waited 2 years for an approval to rebuild their home after it burned down. To speak for the many that have not been capable of speaking for themselves, or as we've most been recently seeing with the DPW, knowing they cannot fight City Hall, so why bother? I am here tonight for the silent majorities that are sick and tired of being sick and tired of status quo, and the vitriolic rhetoric that gets regurgitated every time someone speaks up. I am, and we are, your advocate for change. Thank you so much.
Carol Carney is a Democratic candidate. She's been a Garwood resident for 15 years. She's the owner of a local travel agency. She was appointed in September to fill an unexpired term on the council. She's been the event director for both Garwood Rocks, the street fair, and Movies Under the Stars. She is a board member and former vice chairwoman of the Greater Westfield Area Chamber of Commerce. She attended Union County College and graduated from Catherine Gibbs Business School, a Newark native and a police officer's widow. In the 1990s, she fought successfully for state reforms that protect the pension rights of first responders' widows. Ms. Carney.
Thank you, Mr. Conley, and everyone at the point. Seems like I just left here. Wasn't too long ago I was standing here. Good evening to all, and thank you for coming. My name is Carol Carney. I have owned a business here in Garwood since 2000 and lived in Garwood since 2006. My son, my daughter-in-law, my 2 grandsons, and my sister all live here in town. My family has a vested interest with 3 generations living in Garwood. We all have something in common. We all love Garwood. I have been privileged to serve on the council for the last month. I have volunteered my time and expertise to the borough for the last 9 years. For the past 2 years, I have spearheaded and brought to life Garwood Rocks. Everybody say Garwood Rocks. And brought the life of Garwood Rocks and I have served as its event coordinator. The process of planning Garwood Rocks takes 6 months to make this event a success. Garwood Rocks has brought the community together and has put Garwood back on the map. I will bring that same hard work and tenacity to the Borough Council. I revitalized the Chamber of Commerce, which has grown to over 40 businesses, and I have partnered with 4 other neighboring communities to form a potent chamber. With your support, I want to continue to serve. My well-known desire is to keep Garwood moving forward through smart development, which is sensible, mixed-use, affordable, rateable, transit, village-minded development, as wonderfully demonstrated right here at the point and also across the parking lot in the mixed-use lofts. I am willing to work together with the council to ensure successful development.
1 minute.
I believe that good people working together can achieve anything they set out to do. I know the people of Garwood are good people, and I, along with Council President Bill Meerstadt and the rest of our team, will get the job done for our residents. Thank you.
Bill Meerstadt is the other Democratic candidate, a Garwood resident for 27 years, currently the president of the Borough Council. He's the Director of Planning for the City of Plainfield, holds bachelor's and master's degrees in planning, both from Rutgers, has been active in Garwood, in the Garwood Planning Board, the Board of Education, the PTA, the Education Foundation of Garwood, and the Boy Scouts. Mr. Meerstadt.
Good evening. I am Bill Meerstadt, and I'm running for re-election to the Garwood Borough Council. I thank Bill Connolly and the Point residents for having this debate and inviting the four of us. Far from not being part of Garwood, this debate and the involvement of so many of the Point's residents in Garwood events have made you Pointers a vital part of Garwood. I thank you all. My wife Maria and I have been involved in our community since our children, Eric and Jenna, started school 25 years ago. From preschool mothers to the PTA, to coaching soccer, to being elected to the Board of Education, writing the Borough Master Plan and Zoning Ordinance, serving on the Planning Board, the Library Board, and now Council, my family has sacrificed much and dedicated many hours to public service for Garwood. Why? Why do I want to run for Borough Council? My mother and father, a former Roselle Republican councilman, instilled public service into my brother, sisters, and me by their community service. I am proud of where I've lived for over a quarter century. I want to improve the place in which I live for us all. God bless you. This year's campaign is tough, not because of all the work, but because Republican candidates have chosen to make it negative and misleading. Let me be clear, let me be positive. I support fiscal responsibility by making the tough, extremely tough decision to share DPW superintendent services with Fanwood. Nowhere else in America are Republicans supporting unnecessary administrative levels of big government. I support redevelopment of the Casal and Petra properties, just as I supported the development of Beckley Perforating, South Avenue Quonset huts, and Diamond expansion into the Garwood Mall, Home Depot, and the Point, respectively. Garwood is better for these developments. Nowhere else are Republicans opposed to redevelopment that brings communities economic activities and jobs. I support the use of eminent domain, if needed, to force the developer to provide public parking for Garwood residents. Eminent domain is an option that must remain in Garwood's toolbox in order to ensure smart development.
1 minute.
Even Donald Trump, the Republican presidential favorite, recently stated, quote, "When it comes to jobs, road, the public good, I think it's a wonderful thing." Only Garwood Republican candidates oppose the constitutional provision providing eminent domain for public purpose. I support the senior village development for current and future Garwoodians. I don't understand why Republican candidates oppose senior citizen housing. One might argue that it is insensitive and mean-spirited. I support the development of the recreation complex. It is a great facility that our children deserve after all these years of playing beggars on other towns' fields. Our elementary school students deserve to have home games after 100 years. I don't understand a Republican candidate who opposes a public good that increases our property values. I support our transit village goal with more transit stops. I don't understand Republican candidates who oppose the use of train lines for rails. Finally, I support the transformation of contaminated, decrepit industry into this beautiful development we're standing in tonight. I was ecstatic. Shall I stop or finish the sentence?
Finish the sentence, and then
I'm running for re-election because I believe that Garwood has had a great past and the Democratic Party in office will have an even greater future. Thank you.
Joseph Sarno is the other Republican candidate. He's a lifelong New Jersey resident. He graduated cum laude from Albright College with majors in accounting and political science. While he was there, he was a cross-country and long-distance runner. He works in Cranford as a senior accountant at SS&C Globe Op, which describes itself as serving the alternative investment industry. Among his clients have been college endowment funds, public and private sector pension funds, and nonprofit foundations. Mr. Sarno.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming here tonight. Thank you to the Point, and thank you to the candidates for coming. I haven't seen a crowd this large since July 14th. July 14th was the night that the DPW head was fired. That night I learned a lot. I saw a lot of sadness and a lot of anger. How can the council, in the face of a ginormous adversary, continue to do what they wanted to do and read prepared statements? It was as if they did not want to negotiate or talk with the residents or take input. They already had their minds made up. You know, it reminded me of the day when I was laid off. I was laid off after the crash from UBS. It was the longest walk from 52nd Street all the way down to Penn Station. And seeing the anguish in Fred's eyes, it really said, is this really what Garwood's about? Is it really a small town with a big heart when you do that to someone, when so many people were opposed to it? I don't think so. You know, seeing that many people sick, I knew that I was doing the right thing and running as a council member along with Eileen Kukaro. I know that my expertise in accounting will help this borough. When we go through budgets, when we go through financial decisions, I know I can bring some disciplined spending and not spend too much money on things that are such as your park and your athletic field complex and other frivolous spending that have come along the way. I know that with that expertise and my work with such nonprofit organizations such as Big Brother, Big Sister, and Unico, that I can bring back that small town, big heart that Garwood once was. And I know that with all of you and bringing transparency back to everyone. 1 minute. No worries, I want to have an emergency happen here. Hope everything's under control, that's okay. But I know that if we bring the transparency and the government back to you, the people, that Garwood will be where it needs to be again. Thank you all again.
Thank you all. The first question. There's been much discussion lately, some of it in the last 30 seconds or so, about development and overdevelopment. And we are gathered this evening in the largest, densest redevelopment project, perhaps in Garwood's history, but certainly in the last 30 years. So does the point represent overdevelopment? Ms. Carney.
That's a good question. No, I do not believe that the point represents overdevelopment. It's here, it's vital. You have businesses operating here. You have townhomes, apartment rentals, which are in walking distance of the buses and the trains into Manhattan. I do not think it is considered overdevelopment.
Mr. Newstead.
Overdevelopment, I think, is in the eye of the beholder. And what I mean by that, a couple of quick stories. How much time do we have for this, Mr. Nolan? 2 minutes. Thank you very much. I think when we go door to door, I'm sure all of us have experienced it. Residents don't necessarily like development by them, even a new house or a couple of new houses down the block. I know some residents are upset about the development at the end of 4th and Walnut. But it's important to understand that even that development is actually being constructed at the same density as the rest of Garwood. Garwood's zoning calls for 1 and 2 family homes on 40 or 50 by 100 foot lots, which is a density of 8 to 10, or if you go 2 family, up to 14 units an acre. That development there has been created at the same density as the rest of the community, even though it's a different type of structure, which is a townhouse. This development here, if you look back at the records, you will see that I testified against this application. And I think it's important to note what I said at that meeting. I said that there were too many units. And because it happens to be my profession, I did a lot of homework, and I thought at that point in time that there were too many units. I was not opposed to the development. I felt it should have been cut by 2. The development itself is not over-intensive. The development provides parking for its residents, provides open space, has mixed use. It's by the train station. That's where you want increased development. So the bottom line is, do I believe that the point is overdevelopment, I'll say two things. First, it's far better than what was here. And second, no, it is not overdevelopment.
Mr. Sarno.
Yes, I believe that the point is a symbol of good development, specifically because it recognizes that seniors do drive and that there's adequate parking for everyone. This contrasts to what was built between 2nd and 3rd Avenue at the Village at Garwood. There are 71 units and 40 parking spots. We have an overflow of parking onto 3rd Avenue, and if you go and speak to the residents along 3rd Avenue, what you'll find is a lot of dismay. Now, up until recently, when the parking committee finally came to the conclusion and the parking resolution passed about a little over a month ago, life wasn't addressed there. We had commuters parking from other towns. And now on top of that, you're going to have other residents that are just coming into Garwood, really wanting to get a good feel of what Garwood's about, and now they're going to have to park on the street. I wonder what happens when it's going to snow. I wonder what the residents will say then. You know, I think this is a great place because, you know what, it addresses parking, it has mixed use, and people can drive and come and go as they please. 1 minute. Thank you.
Ms. Cooper.
Oh my goodness, everything's already been said. Do I have to say anything at all? The point, I can honestly say, when it was first put out there, I was somewhat against it. Obviously, I live on 3rd Avenue, so I was, deciding what the impact would be to where I live. Once it was built, I decided that, well, evidently everybody can see it is a well-maintained, self-contained community. It's almost like its own little neighborhood here. So yes, this is the whole idea of smart development. Unsmart development would be, as Mr. Neerstead said, and agrees that it is, at the end of 4th Avenue, where the Heidi property is, it's not a matter of that being smart or not smart. It was not zoned for what they approved there. I think that's all I got.
Should the borough offer tax incentives to encourage development along North and South Avenues? Should it reserve the right to use eminent domain if necessary to ensure appropriate development? Mr. Newstead.
Coincidental that I should get that one first. There's been talk about tax, the dirty word, and I consider it a dirty word, pilot, has been thrown out there. And so let's get that on the table. What's a pilot? Pilot is payment in lieu of taxes. Does it mean that somebody doesn't pay taxes? No, it does not. A pilot is something that every developer is entitled to ask the municipality. They're entitled to ask. When a developer asks for a pilot, the bottom line is that the municipality, and this is most important for everyone to understand about a pilot, the municipality gets its full tax dollar. The county gets a minimum of 5%. It's the Board of Education that ends up not getting the full amount. But that pilot is an agreement. It's an agreement that is first proposed by a developer, and then the municipality, the borough in this case, would hire its own financial expert at the developer's cost to review that document, and every case is decided on its own merits. Is it out there? It has to be out there. It has to be out there because of the costs involved in cleaning up contamination, because of the costs involved in development. Does it have to be accepted? Does not have to be accepted. You have to review it and see if it is best for your municipality. So the first answer is depends upon the project, depends upon what's being asked. Eminent domain. Eminent domain is also a dirty word. I want to be clear on that. In this particular case that we're talking about with South Avenue, and eminent domain is not in the cards for the North Avenue paperboard project, if one comes along. It is solely to provide for parking for Garwood residents. Where do people from Willow Avenue park during the snow? Where do firemen and policemen park? Where do borough employees park? Well, right now they park on a lot, Casal's lot, which will no longer be there. The borough needs to have eminent domain in order to provide parking for Garwood residents. Thank you.
Mr. Sarno.
Thank you. You bring up pilots in the pilot program, and you give a great explanation, Bill, because the pilot on the Village at St. Anne's is bringing in a mere $30,000. 5% of that will go to Union County. Is that a good negotiation? Is that a good contract? Shouldn't you see the contract first? Shouldn't we have meetings discussing these pilots? Shouldn't you see all the proposals on the table? I think so. I think it shouldn't be up to a financial expert to make the sole decision. I think it should be up to all of you to be involved in the process, to give your feedback. You know, that's what we're about, transparency and making government more open to you. Moving on to eminent domain. Yeah, this is a bad word, and what it will do is it infringes on your personal property rights and your personal property. You know, when I look at a resident on South Avenue and he's looking at, I don't really want to sell, I really don't. But oh well, we're going to take your property away from you, regardless of what it's a name of. It doesn't represent what's best for the individual and the liberty and prosperity that you have within this country. Certain conservatives like Rand Paul oppose eminent domain. Donald Trump's vision on that is not Garwood's vision on that. Thank you, guys.
Ms. Bucaro.
Eminent domain. I'd like to comment by saying that as a real estate agent, our guidelines are twofold. To promote, you know, home ownership throughout the state, throughout the country, and also to positively protect private property rights. That is what being an agent is all about. And I stick to that. No matter what anybody says, eminent domain, they say it's a bad word. I say that it does definitely infringe upon private property rights, no matter what the cause is or what you choose to use it for. Eminent domain was used back in when they needed railroads and they needed to obtain land from all the homeowners, all the landowners. Nowadays, I really don't think there's any use for it. As far as pilot programs, well, we clearly see what happened at the Village of Garwood. I was definitely opposed to that, especially 71 units with parking for 40. There was definitely not enough room there for that. As far as tax abatements, I can honestly say about that, I'm not really in favor of tax abatements for the simple reason that anybody that chooses to come into Garwood, our town, it should be a privilege. We should not be giving them a reward for coming into Garwood and developing whatever it is they see fit here. It's an honor. It's an honor to build whatever they are going to be building here, and no, they should not be getting a tax abatement for that privilege. Thank you.
Ms. Carney.
Well, let me speak on eminent domain first because I think Bill Nierstadt actually explained the pilot program very clearly. The eminent domain portion of it is every municipality needs to have eminent domain in their toolbox, just as they need it in any major redevelopment project. If it needs to be used, it's to protect the borough. It's to protect the parking facilities that we are to get with this new redevelopment project. It's not to go in and take people's private housing. It's not what it's going to be used for. A builder can walk away from a project when it's a quarter of the way, half the way done, and you'll wind up with a relic standing out on the center of Center Street and South Avenue. If the borough has the right of eminent domain, they could move forward and they can do something about it.
1 minute.
That's all I have to say about eminent domain and pilot program.
Okay, we've been talking now largely in the last few minutes about two large tracts on South Avenue, the Casale and Petro properties. Both have been designated as in need of renewal. What should go there? Mr. Bucaro?
What should go? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of that.
Hey, Bill, what's his name? I think it's Mr. Sarno. Bill? Bill. I think Mr. Sarno.
Really?
I'm looking out for it.
That's a curveball right there.
That's right. That's right.
Keep you on your toes. All right, I guess I'll start the question. What should go there? Is it really up to me to decide? Or is it up to the people to decide? It's not my property. That's the first thing. It's not my property. I understand that it's in the need of redevelopment, but shouldn't we be working together to find the solution? The one thing I could tell you, if I had a hypothetical situation where I could magically put what I want there, I would make sure that it had sustainable parking. that it wasn't too dense and too many people infringing on our infrastructure and our schools. We brought up pilot before, and that neglects the school costs. 95% of all the money from a pilot goes to the municipality, and it leaves the school system bare. What does that do? That increases the resources and the amount of money that the town needs to provide the schooling, okay? It increases it on all of you. So as you see certain buildings go up and you don't see the pilot agreements and your taxes continually go up, the reason is because it was too dense and there were too many people there and too little parking.
I will concur with Mr. Sarno. Basically, we have no control. Me, as I'm running for council, am not going to be making decisions as far as that property goes. That is up to the planning board. But what I have here is a better idea. I believe that we could have a formal committee created to study these properties instead of planning board that may have a secret agenda, they want more density, and basically it'll put it out there for the public to be able to review. The smart word, the little smart growth, I believe in intelligent growth. There's a big difference between smart and intelligent. Like I said, we do not have control of that property, we do not own it. But I would hope that an independent committee could step forward, weigh all the pros and cons about what would be best for Garwood in that particular area.
My vision of that property is my vision. I think it should be mixed use. I think there should be parking. I think there should be rental apartments there. I think, excuse me, that's very rude. It is not our decision. The builder has not even come in with any plans. So we can't make the decision what's going to go there. They have to work hand in hand with the planning board and the council to decide what will be put there. But my vision for that would be having a downtown, having residential, having stores, having parking. That's my vision for Garwood.
Thank you. I agree 100% with Carol. I think the bottom line is that what everyone should look at is what has happened in New Jersey along New Jersey transit lines. Morrison Essex line, also the Raritan Valley line. Go to Fanwood, go to Westfield, Cranford, Roosevelt Park, Union. Those train stops, okay, are the most valuable and most rateable possible properties we have. Industry is not coming back. In America, I think we all read the paper and everything else. We know the industry is not going to come back. So what you're going to have at these transit stops is you're going to have mixed use. Go any of those municipalities I mentioned that have the transit stops. Go to Morristown. Anywhere you have a train stop, you're going to have a mixed use development. Now, nothing has been proposed yet. And the way the process works, the public does have a say. The public has many says. Right now, the planning board has adopted a need of redevelopment study. The council has directed the planning board to undertake and prepare a redevelopment plan. That redevelopment plan will be prepared by the board planner. Will be presented back to the planning board. There will be public hearings there. When the developer proposes something, there will be public hearings there. I don't know what the development will look like, but I don't think any of us in this room aren't aware of the fact that what has been happening, what has been created, what has been developed along other municipality train lines. There's going to be some type of mixed-use development. It's going to be stores, it's going to be a downtown, it's going to be apartments, it's going to be open space, it's going to be a plaza. I mean, I do this, I see this every day. So this is what is going to be proposed. And we all welcome everyone's input. I think it'll be very interesting to see what gets proposed and to get our input. One of the things that I really would like to get out of it is a connection directly to the New Jersey Transit Station. I think that'd be a great thing for Garwood.
Okay. In an effort to control costs, should the borough consider sharing more services with other towns or with the county? If so, which services? If not, why not? Mr. Booker.
Shared services, well, shared services have been a big red flag over the last few months. It's been in the news, it's been all over this town, we've spoken about it extensively. Shared services, as I discussed in my opening statement, wasn't part of 1903 Garwood. Basically, I believe that some things are shared. I mean, our high school is shared, there are certain things that are great to be shared. When you start renting and selling every single thing that is great about this town, we no longer become a town. The shared services agreement with Garwood already has shared services with 12 other towns. So all those shared service agreements, I don't see how it has helped Garwood at all if they're still looking for more shared services. As far as Garwood goes, we have enough shared services, I believe, as far as our building department in Cranford, they do a great job, Westfield. As far as shared services down the line, I guess I would have to see what would be proposed and what they would share further.
We have shared services with the tax assessor, as Eileen said, in Westfield, the health department in Westfield, the construction department in Cranford, the school board admin in Mountainside. As far as a shared service agreement with Garwood, as you brought up, basically, we have to see if it's going to work and if it's going to save the borough money. It has to be followed. Is there anywhere else that you can go and share services? I think that small, efficient government should be looking all the time to keep the tax dollars down for the borough of Garwood, and that's the way I feel about shared services.
Mr. Griskin.
Thank you. Kind of ran out of things to say as we go along here.
It's about
The bottom line, I think we're all skeptical. We're all skeptical about shared services. Shared services was proposed and was really promoted by our governor who lives in New Hampshire now. And what they really promoted was the idea that if you share the services, if you share the costs, municipalities can save dollars. It was promoted at the same time that, what do you call it, agglomeration of small municipalities was being promoted as a way to save money. But what was most interesting about that is it hasn't happened. I think Princeton Borough, and 2 towns up in Warren County combined, but that's really been about it. And it's because they found that small communities, such as ours, are actually the most efficient. We do watch our dollars. So, as was mentioned, we do have shared services already. Recently, the council looked at the police dispatch as a shared service, and that didn't make sense. That was not only wasn't it going to save us money, but the big thing with that was that we weren't going to have the same service. If you went down there late at night, you'd be hitting a button on the door in order to reach someone in Elizabeth to help you with your situation. So I think that every proposed shared service has to be looked at on its own merits. I think we all know the situation with our first aid squad here in town. We might very well have to look into some type of shared service with Union County for that, because we're not getting the volunteers to provide what we need. I'd like to say one thing about this shared service. As I indicated earlier, it was a very tough decision regarding the DPW. I also want to indicate that when you're a council member, you don't work for one person. You work for the borough at large. And it requires leadership. It requires the ability to take a lot of slings and arrows when you need to make those decisions. And it was a very tough decision, but I accept my decision in that matter.
I'm a little surprised. The largest shared service that we have is with our high school, right? We share with Clark. A few of us in the room have gone there themselves, Eileen. They do work on occasion. They do work. They can be beneficial. We should always look to share services. I mean, 1/6 of your tax bill goes to the county. We should always be looking to see what the county could offer. First aid could be one of them. We're losing volunteers as the years go on. However, when you look at the DPW agreement with Famwood and the shared service agreement that many of you opposed, not all of you, many of you, in an overwhelming manner, shouldn't the council go back to the drawing board? Shouldn't you go back and reconsider it? I think so. When the people don't want it, or they feel that you're essentially letting a guy go and really hurting him, it's not a good thing. And we talked about recycling in that agreement. We went to a 6-month contract. Then someone doesn't show up, and the next thing you know, we have to get a new vendor, and we are paying double than what we did 6 months ago. Is that the way this shared service agreement was planned to go out? I don't think so. We shouldn't be forcing something along the lines of that. And on October 29th, when you see Garwood have to bid out for the new contract on 1/1/2016, watch Famwood too. They're also bidding on the same day.
Recent council meetings have been marked by a degree of rancor that has sometimes hindered the efficient operation of government. What specific steps would you take to encourage civility and cooperation in the conduct of the public's business? Ms. Carney.
Repeat the question.
What specific steps would you take to encourage civility and cooperation in the conduct of the public's business?
Are you talking with regard to the conduct of the council people on the dais?
I think
Is
if
that
you've
what you are?
attended council meetings,
Okay.
I'm not
You
sure
know
I
what
get the
goes
question
on.
either.
It's not resonating in my head for some reason.
Me either.
Could you, if you're, civility on the council needs to work together. I truly believe that the people that are sitting up there should leave the R&D at the door. You need to work for the people here in Garwood. You have to make tough decisions when you're up there, and most of the people sitting in this room, I don't really recognize a lot of the faces. I don't see you at council meetings. I have gone to many council meetings. Now I'm sitting on the other side. And you really don't know what we deal with up there on a bi-weekly basis.
1 minute.
And, you know, it's how do you get civility up there? You have to work together. There's no other way than working together. You have to sit, you have to discuss it, and not everybody has the same thoughts in their mind, and you have to work it out. And it's only for the good of the people of Garwood. There's nothing much more that I could add to that.
Mr. Nisbet.
I think unfortunately what we have on council, first of all, I guess I should say that I don't enjoy going to council meetings anymore. I used to. I don't anymore. Because what we have is 5 civil people and 1 antagonist. And that creates a very difficult situation. And it creates a difficult situation because I think the 5 other members that are not antagonists don't want to create or continue that uncivil situation that gets created. I sit there and I debate. Do I argue? Do I let it go? And I do that at almost every council meeting. And it's not fun. It's very, very difficult. There are times I argue, and there are times I just let it go. What we need to do, I think, is something that actually Mayor Lombardo mentioned many years ago. And that has to do with the process. And the process to get something to council and through the council agenda is to work through committees. And you work through committees, and the committee process, where you have 3 members on a committee, allows items to be discussed, allows items to be debated, and then if it gets out of committee, it gets brought to the council. By the time it gets to council, there might be some discussion, but the rest of the council members need to rely upon the knowledge, the debate, the discussion that goes on at the committee meetings. And I think if we revert to that process and we do something about the antagonist on the board, we will have a civil council going forward.
Mr. Sony.
You know, I know I can bring something to the council. You know, I'm an accountant. There's a lot of skills I can bring when we go to these different committees, when we discuss budgets, and we discuss monetary items. I've done it for over 10 years, ever since I graduated college. I don't want to add discord to it. I want to add math and problem-solving skills. I want to work pragmatically with everyone on the board, regardless of party, because I know that's the only way we're going to get things done. We have to work through persuasion. We have to work through gathering ideas and acting on them. I'll give you an example. Let's say we need something from the county. The county's controlled by all Democrats, and if I were to serve, maybe I can have Sarah call the county. She has a lot of good relationships there. And conversely, maybe if I were to get on, I can call John Bramnick, Tom Kane, and others that represent this area. I know that we can work together to get the right leadership from the state level and the county level. What I don't want to see anymore from council is how out of touch they are. I want to bring back transparency. So on top of bringing my accounting skills, I want to bring the council back to you. And I know Eileen agrees with me. I mean, how well we work together through this entire campaign season is truly a testament to how well I can work with different people. It doesn't matter about the disparity in age, because we're working towards a common goal in serving you. Thank you.
Who brought up age? Was that part of the question? Was that?
No.
I forgive you for this, okay?
Don't have it again.
Yeah.
See how well we work together?
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. As Carol said, I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about the council. Is that what we're talking about? I think the frustration that goes on with the council is because certain people, I believe, are not listening to the residents of Garwood. So what happens is you get the animosity, people's dander gets up, they get excited, and they don't really feel like they have any other recourse. So I really wouldn't single out any one particular person. That's not the right thing to do. But what I would do, and what I do in my entire real estate career, is I represent all parties. As a real estate agent, guess what? If I can't negotiate with 2 attorneys, 2 inspectors, 2 other agents, buyers and sellers, when the seller says, well, a meteor landed on the roof and there's a big hole in it, but we're not going to fix it, and the buyer says, well, what do you mean? I can see the sky through the roof. Well, you have to work together as a team to be able to get to where you have to be. That's what it means to be a professional, whether it's a real estate agent, Mr. Sarno, who is an accountant, Mr. Nearstead, who is a planner, and Carol Carney, that runs her own business. I think we all should be able to work together for the common good of this great town.
What would you do to enhance communications between the borough and its citizens? Should the Facebook page be revived with appropriate regulations? Should the Garwood Gazette be made more timely and substantive? Are there other avenues the borough should pursue? Mr. Nearstead.
It's a double-edged question. Facebook. I'm not a fan of Facebook. Do I have a Facebook page? Yes, I have a Facebook page. When was the last time I was on it? I couldn't tell you. I don't like it because it, excuse the expression, it just takes away your privacy. And I fear the same thing with the borough Facebook page. I truly do. You can't control who's on it. You can't control who's a friend. You can't control who put something on it. In order to control it, you have to have the business administrator, borough clerk, or someone in her office basically watch Facebook every minute of every day. I'm sorry, they have more important things to do. So Facebook, more than willing to discuss it. With controls, maybe it can be made proper, but I'm not a fan of Facebook. We need to have the we need to have the borough website improved. We need to have more things put on it. We need to have better communication on it. We need to update it more often. I'm a big fan of the web page itself. You go on there, have the events on there, have anything that's occurring in the borough on the web page. I also think that the simple sign out front of Borough Hall, we need to read it. But I'm also going to strike a chord that may not go over so well, and that is that a republic, the democratic republic such as we live in, requires citizen input, requires citizen involvement, requires citizens to actually come out and find out what's going on too. And while the borough can have a web page, the borough can have a Facebook page, it can have the Gazette, it can have the sign out front. We don't have newspapers anymore, not as often as we did. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to find out what's going on in our own borough. I'm sure, again, there are 4 of us up here, we've gotten to a house and the person has said, oh, who's the mayor? We need to find out what's going on.
Mr. Sarman.
When it comes to the borough Facebook page, I don't know if many of you know this, but last year, it sent out invites to a Democratic fundraiser. Since that time, there has not been an investigation as to who was responsible and what had happened behind that. Until that investigation is done, we cannot move forward with a Facebook page. After that's done, if it's done, then we can move forward with the appropriate controls and then start informing the citizens of Garwood the way that other towns do. Yes, there needs to be accountability. When we talk about the webpage, I think we can constantly update it. We need to make it more live. We have to make businesses aware of where Garwood is and what we're about. Not everyone comes from Union County. I mean, me, myself, I came all the way up, down from Ocean County. I did the reverse that most people in New Jersey do. I traveled up the Parkway for work. And because this is a great borough. 1 minute. I think that constantly evolving that page will be a benefit to potential businesses that want to come here. You know, a coworker just brought up today. He just bought a house in West Caldwell, not far from here in Essex County. And he said, you know, Joe, they just had a meeting for new residences that just moved into the area. And they just had light refreshments. He goes, and they didn't even mention party names. They just all said, hey, welcome to the town. Isn't that something we can do? Isn't that something we can do to get to know your neighbors as opposed to a council meeting? I think that'd be a great idea. And I'm glad that I talked to him today. Thank you.
Any form of communication that can be put out there for the citizens of Garwood is totally acceptable. We have a wide range of ages in this town. Not everybody uses Facebook. Not everybody uses snail mail. Not everybody uses email. So any way that you can put all the information out there for the residents to be able to partake and see what's going on a daily basis is wonderful. I think the Garwood actual site, garwood.org, could be a little bit more user-friendly. I think they could spruce that up a bit, definitely without a doubt, and make sure every single thing that pertains to Garwood is on there. There's usually always some things that are missing. The Facebook page, I concur with my associate down there, Joe Sarno, should not be brought back until we see what was actually behind the inappropriate postings for a fundraiser. Definitely not be brought back. Snail mail, I also believe is good. Like I said, there's plenty of seniors in town that would like to see a letter. I mean, what's wrong with letters anymore? I mean, are they extinct? The letters would have come in really handy when the township, a few years ago, changed the 2-family zoning to 1, and the residents that were in that zone, when the rug was pulled out from underneath them, didn't even know that the zone was changed until they either went to sell their house or went to sell their house, and that's when they found out about it. So yes, every form of communication that can be related to the residents of Garwood must be undertaken.
The borough should have a Facebook page. There's no doubt in my mind. The borough also, the Garwood Gazette is an informational quarterly newsletter which highlights past, present, and future events. That is another way of getting the word out to our residents that do not use Facebook and do not tweet and do not have an iPhone as we do. There's something I really have to bring out about this social media and why, after 8 months that this sat quiet, and the council is trying to make policy to make certain that the Facebook page would be administered properly and secured in order that this would not occur again. The event that you're saying that something was sent out, it wasn't sent out to people in town as an invite. It was on the Facebook page, it was, someone friended the Facebook page. They did, however it happened, okay, it was not done maliciously. It did go to the prosecutor's office, and Mr. Matthew knows that. And the prosecutor's office threw it out. So, getting back to having a Facebook page, yes, we should have a Facebook page.
Ms. Carney ran last year as a Republican. She's here this year as a Democrat. Do party labels matter in a town as small as Garwood? And should they matter? Mr. Sarno.
Thank you. What really matters is the message we send to everyone. It's not necessarily the party. I think Ms. Carney has found herself more aligned with the party that goes along with her thinking. Right now, Eileen and I are for transparency. We oppose the DPW agreement, and right now, the Republican Party stands behind that. So yeah, there is a little bit of a meaning behind it. There is a little bit of allegiance to it. You know, when you look at people changing parties and things of that nature, always focus on the message that's behind that. What's their campaign model? What are they standing for? You should always look at that. And for us, we're standing for you. We're bringing the government back to you. And we're also making sure that you're on top of all issues.
Ms. Kukuro?
I would have to concur. But obviously, Ms. Carney changing parties, only Ms. Carney knows why she changed parties. It's not me. It's not for me to sit here and judge why she did. I believe if you have allegiance or a loyalty to your party, to your constituents, to your husband, to your wife, then those traits are ingrained in you. So if a person can haphazardly change parties because another party will suit their purpose much better, or help them get elected as a different party, then you know what? That's up to Carol.
I have to say the Garwood Republicans left me. And I had the tenacity to run on the Republican line with no help from the Republican chair of the party, and lost only by a few votes. The Dems offered me an opportunity to serve on council, and I took it with great pride. Today, I come to you as Carol Carney, not as a Republican or a Democrat, with honesty and integrity. I will always stay true to myself and put Garwood first, not the political party. That's who I am.
I think R&D matters on a national level, not a local level. This might surprise people. When I was 18, I started out as a Republican. Obviously, my father had an influence on that. Years later, I found my true calling and switched to a Democratic Party. First off, we believe Carol switched to the Democratic Party, as she stated, because the Republican Party left her, not because she left the party. We hope Carol's the first of many. As Council Member Sarah Tedisco has stated, we will not be happy until every Republican becomes a Democrat. Also, people may not know this, but if you look back, I ran against the Democratic Party here in town years ago. And Lombardo was shaking his head. He knows. Because, not that I remember, I lost by 3 votes. I think it's very important to know or to recognize that
1 minute.
we all have our views on things, and sometimes you're aligned with the party, sometimes they're not. But as Carol's indicated, you have to be your own person. Carol obviously realized that she could no longer agree with the policies of the new Republican Party in Garwood. I think it's very important for me to emphasize the new Republican Party in Garwood. For those members in the audience who have been longtime GOP members, this party of today does not represent the GOP party of yesterday. I think you can see that very easily by going down certain streets in town, seeing where former Republican chairmen live, former Republican council people live, and see whose signs they have out on their lawn. Longtime Garwood members of the Republican Party do not support the current Republican Party of Garwood, and I hope that continues on November 3rd. Thank you.
Beyond shared services, what specific steps would you take to control costs? And please be specific. Ms. Kukarov.
The first step in controlling cost, to me, is to stop spending. I mean, I don't see any other way with the budget that we have in Garwood and the Board of Ed, county taxes, municipal taxes. It's pretty hard to ascertain what I would actually cut to try and save taxes. I can tell you one thing, I would not have spent over $3 million on a vanity project to make sure Giant Stadium was in Garwood. I would have used that money for much needed road repair, curbs, sidewalks. There was much better things that the money could be spent on. I certainly wouldn't be bonding out. It's hard for me to say this, but I know every town works this way, and I'm not familiar with the budget like Bill Mearstead would be. He's been doing this for quite a while. But it would seem to me the more times you borrow money, the debt keeps going up and up and up, and the interest on that debt will seem to never get paid.
1 minute.
And also, it's kind of disconcerting to see that we took grant money, and now that big beautiful complex really doesn't even belong to Garwood with the big Green Acre sign in front of it. Garwood used to own what was in Garwood. They used to build what was in Garwood. They didn't borrow to build, and in the end, not even own what's really here.
Ms. Carney?
Can I ask who owns the complex? If you're saying...
Well, it's funded by Green Acres, so do you think Garwood really has control over that complex? Totally?
Garwood owns the complex.
Do you think, didn't Garwood not take grant money? And are there never any strings attached to grant money when we take it?
I don't know what strings are attached, but Garwood owns that complex.
Garwood doesn't own that complex, lock, stock,
We're
and
not
barrel.
supposed to be
Well,
going
then why
back
did
and
you
forth.
say it to me?
This is Mrs. Carney. Ms. Carney,
Yes.
2 minutes.
Okay. Government, to save tax, to save money, make government more efficient and generate revenue. That's what good government is all about. Garwood provides top-of-the-line services to its residents in this town. It's very hard. You have to watch the budget and make sure the monies are being spent wisely. That's all we can do when we sit and we look at the budget. We do have people that are experienced in this and really know, really can guide us in the direction on how we can save money. Our 2014 budget was the lowest in 12 years, so I don't, you know, I don't have much more to say other than the fact that we need smart government. We need to learn how to save the money, and when I'm sitting up in the days, I will make sure that happens.
Mr. Newsom.
Everything increases, except our salaries. We all know that. 1% is doing great. The rest of us really aren't doing well at all. Salaries haven't been up in a long time. It's easy to say stop spending. Are you going to lay off the police department tomorrow? That's the biggest part of our budget. I didn't know the Republican Party advocated laying off the police, so I'll have to let you know that
That's
tomorrow.
not what she said.
Yeah.
Just stop the nonsense.
Right.
If you're
Control
going
the
to
people on the
stop, if
dais
you're going to
first.
stop paying employees, if you're going to stop spending, there are loss of services. They go together. It's the job of the Borough Council to provide for the services that the residents ask for and require. And unfortunately, taxes pay for those services. Anyone who sits up here and says to you that they're not going to, they're not going to raise your taxes is basically lying. And I shouldn't say their taxes, I pay them too, our taxes. They're basically lying to you. It's a job of council to determine what services are necessary for the borough, determine what is needed to ensure that property values in the borough are improved. You can talk about not wanting to spend money on an athletic facility, but when a municipality stays dormant and doesn't do anything to improve its worth, then your property values do not increase, and you lose value. We saw that, as Joe knows, in the 2008 recession onto what, 2012 or however long it went on. Still going on. And it's incumbent upon council members to recognize what those services are, to try to get those services at the least cost possible, and keep taxes as low as possible. And that is what we can promise you. That's
Mr. Sona.
I tell you, the first thing I would cut would be the salaries of the mayor and council who fired our DPW director. They should all be council. And that includes even those that didn't vote, because everyone is a team. So even Jim, you voted against it, you go down to $1 too. You know Fanwood, all their guys, they get $1, each one of them. We need to start with ourselves. We need to look in the mirror. I'd be humbled to walk up to the dais and say, just take me down to $1. I hold myself to that. I will do that if I am elected. I want to do that. When people say taxes won't go down, well, my parents are still down in Lacey Township in Ocean County. My father's property taxes went down 10%. Don't tell me it's impossible. And I know that's in Ocean County. I know we're in a different world. But please don't tell me it's impossible because of ratables and things that have been brought into the community. Also,
1 minute.
when I hear that we had the lowest budget in 12 years, actually we're the highest ever municipal budget in the history of Garwood. It may have been the lowest increase, but the number value, the quantity of that, was still pretty high. It was very close to what it was the year before. So we do need somebody with the background that I have as an accountant, where I can bring that disciplined mindset to the council.
Excuse me, do you do municipal accounting?
No, but I do know that plenty of people that do.
What is that? I'm not sure if I follow the procedure correctly.
What makes the difference? What's the difference between municipal accounting and seeing the numbers?
Yes, Carol.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one last question. If you're sworn into office next January, what will be your first priority? Ms. Carney,
Could you repeat the question?
if you're sworn in January, what will be your first priority?
I gave back the $1,500 that the council people are paid. I will not take that from the borough. That will be the first thing I do.
First priority is probably to advance the abandoned property regulations in town. I think it's very important to recognize that we cannot allow structures that are damaged or destroyed or in some way reduced in value to stay forever. I'm sure we all know the house on 3rd, there's a couple of houses down on Spruce, one on Center, that we need to make sure that those property owners are held to the same standard the rest of us are to maintain those properties, and it would probably be to advance that ordinance.
Mr. Sarno.
The first thing I would do is to thank the people of Garwood, because that honor would be one of the greatest achievements of my life. It would be a truly humbling experience. I would definitely show that humility, and I would thank all the voters for all their support, and I want to make a promise to them that in those 3 years, I'm going to give my best no matter what, and bring all the skills that I have and any new ideas I have, and to work together with everyone else on the dais, and work pragmatically to come to solutions and make Garwood a better place than we left it.
Ms. Cooper.
It took so long to get to me, I forgot the question already.
You're sworn in January. What will be your first priority?
Well, my running mate and I, Joe, already discussed giving back our $1,500, but I think we do have to keep $1 for tax purposes. I would definitely do that. Also, the first thing I would look into is actually seeing how we can roll back the contract with the shared services once that contract is up. I would like to see our DPW stay totally in Garwood. I don't want to see our DPW, which is the best out of any of the surrounding towns. And you can clearly see it with the demarcation where Cranford starts and Garwood starts in Westfield, where Garwood starts and the rest of the towns end. One's black, one's white. So I would definitely look into, as the first thing, aside from thanking everybody for the privilege of being elected, is to see about rolling back that, that agreement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Time for closing statements. Each candidate has 3 minutes, and we'll get a warning when 1 minute remains. We'll start with Mr. Nersky.
Once again, I thank Mr. Connolly and the Point residents for sponsoring this debate, and to everyone who came out to listen to us. Thank God the Giants and the Mets aren't playing tonight. I hope it has been an educational and worthwhile evening out for everyone. I hope that Garwood residents now recognize that Garwood renegade Republicans are simply a negative group, making us all victims of misinformation by twisting tough council decisions made after much public debate into lies and innuendos. The current Republican Party candidates do not represent the goals and desires of the past Garwood Republican Party, with which the Garwood Democratic Party worked together for the betterment of Garwood for years. They call for reduced taxes but then oppose shared services that provide for such relief. They send out flyers that purposely mislead and misinform Garwood residents about the shared service agreement, stating that DPW workers would report to Fanwood, which is not true. That if Garwood uses and damages Fanwood equipment, we are responsible to fix it. Not true. The shared service agreement costs us $40,000 a year when it actually saves us $70,000 a year. That because the DPW contract ends this year, the future of DPW workers is unknown. And that recycling is even mentioned in the shared service agreement, which it is not. That the recreation complex is costing us $32,000 this year, when in reality with field rentals it is breaking even. That the complex has an anticipated cost of $44,000 in 2016. The 2016 budget hasn't even been discussed yet. Where do these numbers come from? That we oppose options that would increase parking when in reality, Republicans are opposing such an option by not understanding the reason for the borough to retain eminent domain is to ensure that a developer provides parking, not to buy private housing. They needlessly and purposely scare and panic Garwood residents by making totally unfounded statements about affordable housing and needing a new school because of development. Republican platforms about negativity and opposition, not ideas, about problems, not solutions. Carol Carney and I do not speak negatively of Garwood and then try to sell real estate in Garwood. Carol and I are proud that it is now commonplace to see that Garwood homes are routinely selling for $300,000, $400,000, and $500,000. Marie and I purchased our house in 1988 for $169,000. It is now valued at over $350,000. Don't we all want to see our houses increase in value? That is the kind of positive growth that I think all Garwood residents, Democrats and Republicans, want to see. All the developments that I mentioned earlier have been positive for Garwood, have put us on the map, and have made Garwood even a better place to live. Marie and I love walking to restaurants with our friends and catching a train to the city to see entertainment and sporting events. We love living in a town with lower taxes than our surrounding communities, yet being able to utilize all that our location offers. Time? We have 1 minute. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sarno.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank everyone again, thank the candidates, thank Mr. Connolly, and thank the Point for hosting this tonight. Really appreciate everyone coming out here tonight and squeezing into here. Love to see the support and seeing Garwood here. You know, in the 1980 presidential debate, Governor Reagan told President Carter, there will be plenty of Democrats with us this time round, because there's going to be less government, less taxes, and more freedom for the people. Government will be returned to you, and your voice will be heard. Do you think Garwood is better because of government intervention in the intended use of eminent domain? Do you think Garwood still is a small town and big heart despite firing its DPW superintendent in undeniable opposition? Do you think Garwood is better because of undisciplined spending on parks and fields, all the while taxes continually to steadily rise? If you answered no, then I think you know who your candidates are. However, if you answered yes, Eileen and I are your choice. We will bring Garwood back to you. We will listen to you. We will increase the transparency that we so much talk about in our campaign. And if anyone were to tell you otherwise about our agreement, I will say this. I'm going to read the first statement of it. Garwood hereby designates Van Wood's certified public works manager and certified recycling professional as the superintendent of Garwood's Department of Public Works for all public works, services, and activities. Van Wood shall be the primary employer of him. The director shall direct and supervise the Garwood DPW. Right then and there, you see who's reporting to who. Know the facts. We're on the ballot. Please vote column A. Thank you.
I wish to really take the time to thank everybody up here. Bill, Carol, my running mate Joe Sarno, very well said. I don't think I have to add anything to that, but maybe just a few kind words without going into my 2-3 minute limit. Ladies and gentlemen of Garwood, in my profession as a real estate agent, I must have the ability to fight for both buyers and sellers. But what that fight has always meant to me is the fulfillment of dreams. Whether it is helping someone sell a home to retire and move on with the next chapter of their life, or to a new homeowner to start a new life and raise their family. The satisfaction I receive has provided tremendous fulfillment in my life. And more importantly, this means a lot to me, I'm here for my parents that are no longer here to share this day with me. They were one of the silent majorities that I spoke out in the beginning statements that I made, forced to sell their home when my mom passed away. My father could not continue to live in Garwood, even though he loved it greatly, due to the non-stop increases in taxes. One of the most important aspects I bring to the table is my fiduciary duty to represent my clients to the best of my ability. I promise you here and now that I will represent all of Garwood as the most important client I will ever have the honor to serve. I humbly ask for your vote for myself and my running mate Joe Sarno on November 3rd to be able to bring all sides to the table for the better good of this town. Thank you so much.
Once again, I appreciate everyone who took the time out of their busy lives to come here tonight. Eileen, Joe, Bill, my weekend husband. You didn't hear that earlier? Okay. And Mr. Conley and people here at the Point. I believe that politics mean little to the citizens of Garwood. Democrats and Republicans don't matter. Our residents want one thing, to keep Garwood a good, safe, and desirable place to live. They expect their elected representatives to unite in a positive and constructive way to accomplish that. I believe that good people working together can achieve anything they set out to do. And I and my running mate, Bill Neerstadt, will get the job done for our residents. I now stand before you seeking your support and your vote in the November 3rd election. I have envisioned and successfully seen through Garwood Rocks. With your support on Election Day, I will keep Garwood rocking every day. Thank you.
Thank you to all of the candidates. Thank you to all of you for showing up and paying attention, being interested. Be sure to vote on November 3rd. In the meantime, we have some light refreshments back in the corner. Feel free to help yourself. Thank you.